It's 107.5 WBLS. Welcome once again to Sunday Morning. Wayne Gillman with you. We're honored and pleased to have an author whose name is Relentless Aaron. Welcome to WBLS. Relentless.
Thank you, Wayne.
Is that your birth name, or is that your pen name?
That's my new birth name.
Okay. Well, I'm just getting to know you for the first time, and just taking a thumbnail sketch of what I've been able to glean. You know, you've done remarkable work, and you've worked relentlessly, if I may say so, to get to where you are. Why don't you, instead of me basically trying to give an analysis of what you've done, I understand that you had some problems in the last 6 years that might have served as perhaps a motivation to get into book writing.
Actually, that was 6 years ago. So
okay.
Yeah, 6 years ago, I actually ran and operated an entertainment company. I had a magazine going for 3 years. I had a TV show that was going for 7 years. And I also managed an adult nightclub. I won't get too deep into it, but basically what happened is I ended up with a 6-year prison sentence.
Ouch.
And I think that in looking back, I can blame that all on myself. My focus. I didn't have a definiteness of purpose in line, and because when you have a definiteness of purpose, every step that you take, every person that you meet is all in accordance with that purpose, and that was not in line. So that day that I was sentenced, that day that I sat in the jail cell, and started in Jersey. Actually, they sent me out of New York, and I decided I was going to make a change. I was going to make this happen for me. I was going to make the time work for me, as opposed to me doing the time or letting the time do me. I was making it work for me, and I started writing songs. And I think I wrote 300 songs, and I got tired of that. Started writing short stories, and from the short stories, I went to writing full-length novels. The first novel took me a year to write, and the latest one took me 2 weeks to write. So as I told, I wrote 30 novels in all. So.
And you had never done this before prior to
I've never written novels. I have a philosophy. A theory, actually, that was taught to me by some of the leaders and the mentors that I've been reading and following. They say that if you do something, actually this was Dr. Dennis Kebro. It's in Think and Grow Rich, the Black Choice. He says if you do something for long enough, you can be the best at it. And he gives the different variations. If you do something, if you read up on something for a year, you might be the best in a room. You read up on something for 3 years, you might be the best in a town or on a block. But if you read up on something for 6 years or 9 years, you may be the best in the world at it. And I did more than reading 1,000 books. I did more than reading. I wrote. And in writing, I was able to express myself through various characters and live vicariously through these characters, whereas in a jail cell, in solitary confinement, you really can't move. So I was able to imagine my way out of the prison system, and that time literally was spent on the streets. That time was literally spent in different states and different countries, and me bettering my best in terms of my craft. Just to use an analogy, Michael Jordan, when he went down the court, when he first started, I'm sure he missed shots. But as he kept at it, he got better and better. And this is the theory that I had. If I kept at it, I would get better and better. And so help me. Like I say, the first book took me a year to write, and then I got so wicked with it that inevitably it takes me 2 weeks to write a full-length novel now.
One thing I will say, I mean, just based on what you've been able to tell us in the last couple of minutes, there's something about your character that you're driven. You had like 3 or 4 businesses before you fell upon hard times.
Right.
And, all right, so someone like yourself suddenly being faced with a confinement situation for 6 years, that must have been awfully frustrating for you. I mean, it would be right for me to say, and I got a sense even before I go any further with this thought, that you said that everything and everyone you meet has a purpose, so that everything happens for a reason. Am I right in giving that?
At this point, yes.
Okay, all right. So you must have been awfully frustrated when suddenly your life was from 24 hours to 0.
Right. In fact, I found myself on that point of 24 hours to zero. I found myself at a loss for time. This might be strange, out of body statement, but there were times that I wished I had more time in a day while I was in prison. When some people in prison wish the time would go by fast. I could not complete the amount of work that I wanted to complete in the course of a day. I had to break it up between sleep, between writing, between hygiene and reading, and keeping myself current with the things that are going on today. But at the same time, the majority of that time was spent during my goal. Let me give you an example of my schedule. I would wake up at I would go to sleep at 5 in the afternoon. You've heard about the 4 o'clock count, I think.
Yeah.
I would go to sleep when the 4 o'clock count was over. Skip dinner and wake up at 8 or 9 o'clock and have my cup of soup and sit in a room where I wrote. And I would write until 6 in the morning. And at 6 in the morning, they allow you to go to breakfast. I may go to breakfast, I may not. Come back from that and go get my nap till I woke up at 12 noon and went back to writing until count time. So this was a routine, a regimen that I kept with every day for 6 years. I mean, there were incidents that broke the chain, but the consistency is what led to me developing such a new lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And it was not just a lifestyle of discipline. It was where I could not wait to get to the paper with my pen.
Right. Is there any sort of like paramilitary or military or sort of school board background in your history at all? Or, I mean,
there is no. You see it
because I'm beginning to see. I'm trying to draw the dots.
I was actually in the Marine Corps when I was younger. I went in at 17, 18. I served honorably, got an honorable discharge, and did some college. College didn't do too good for me. I wasn't too happy. It was like slowing me down. I got, I think, 20 some odd credits, and at the same time I was in college, in the evenings I would go into the city and peruse, because I wasn't from the city, I'm from the suburbs, although the city was calling me. And so I would go into the city, and my romps into the city ran me into various celebrities to be, and I cultivated my own knowing of how to get around and what to do, and I guess that the suburbia was taken out of the man, and so I was just sleeping in Mount Vernon. I was sleeping in New Rochelle, but I was living in the city.
In the city.
Yeah.
And your businesses were confined to the city, or were they in Mount Vernon or New Rochelle?
Just like to be honest with you, we all go through a maturing stage. You could be 60 years old and you still may not be mature. And at that age, I can look back and I could say that I was more of a hustler, more of a huckster than I was a businessman. I mean, I may have had some business savvy that was passed on from my dad, from my lineage there, but other than that, in terms of maturing, in terms of my sense of awareness, it was not there. It was not there. That long-term vision, if you're a ship without a destination, you're a battleship waiting to sink. And for me, that definition wasn't there. I didn't see long-term.
Even with running the businesses and all that.
Even so, that just takes you to another level of awareness or a level of maturity, but it does not say that you have a plan of action that you want, that you see where you want to be when you're 80 and you're 90 years old. See, when you see where you want to be when you're 80 and 90 years old, you already know what you're going to do tomorrow, because you're living in that, like I was saying, the ship of the destination. You need a charted course, so you're living in that charted course. Your agenda for the day is set. Your discipline is set, your goals, whether it's 6 month, 1 year, 6-year goals are set, and you're also, any problems or issues that come about, you easily sideswipe them or you easily troubleshoot, because you're developing a routine that is break-proof.
When did you actually come to this realization that there's got to be some structure or methodology to what it is that you're doing? Was it the prison situation, or did you see that something was on the horizon just before you got yourself in a little hot water there?
No, it was after I laid down, because once you lay down and the phone is taken from you, and the family and the bills, the priorities of the day, once all of that is stripped from you, you're left with nothing but your spirit, nothing but your physical being. And if you can make something out of that, I think that's a phenomenal feat. And that I think is the turning point for me, was to be laid down and to have no other choice but to do that time. And once you realize you have that, it can be an albatross for you, or it can be a stepping stone for you. And it really, it's funny you bring up that point, because it really is what they call a cognitive dissonance, that you go through, because you're fighting it. You don't want to accept it, but at the same time, it's like medicine. It's nasty, but you got to take it, And for me, that medication was necessary. It was really necessary, and that forced me to make a change. It was more than a slap on the wrist. 6 years is more than. In fact, 6 years could turn out to be life. And just to briefly explain that, I know a mayor who came in. He used to be a mayor in a small town in Jersey. To make a long story short, he came in with a year and a day, but he died 2 days after he came into the prison system. Wow. Because they didn't allow him, and he was self-surrender and all the claim and all of that, but he walked in and they didn't let him go in with his heart medicine.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Okay.
And they didn't let him go in with his heart medicine, and 2 days later he dropped dead. He literally dropped dead, because he was 150 pounds overweight. He was walking with a cane. He had to be when you come into the prison system, you're put through like various measures that you have to do, whether it's medical, educational, food service, what have you. And he had to do all this running around, inevitably, to get his life in order for that year. And he dropped dead 2 days later. His family doesn't even know what happened to him. I guarantee you that.
And that has nothing to do with the fact that
his heart medicine. Oh yeah, it was definitely his heart medicine.
Yeah.
They didn't give him. They first of all, they didn't tell him that no, you couldn't bring your heart medicine. So I guess he assumed. But secondly, they didn't give him anything
to supplement.
As an alternative, because he was going through those measures of going through a health check, etc. It was too late by the time he dropped dead.
Right. So unfortunate. But getting back to your situation, just to fast forward things. While you were in there and you were beginning to develop and hone your skills as a writer, was there any notion of jealousy, or were there people who, fellow cellmates that couldn't fathom what it is that you were doing?
During the time, you go through the roller coaster ride, and it was hard in the beginning, because as I said, it took a year to write my first book. But before I wrote the first book, I was writing songs. So I did run into issues where people were like, "What is he doing?" Or they'll find they say it's not the time that's the problem, it's the people that's the problem. And I bet that's the same thing here in life, out here in the free world, so to speak. And so my device for saying sucker free, it was to stay focused into the work. So while people were stabbing one another, while people were getting into fights, and I've had my share, but I was in the system. Okay. I was able to continue my focus, because my routine was not to be broken. And when you're on a routine, you ever see someone walking up the block? You'll have someone moseying up the block with, turning their head this way and that, and a guy might see a girl, so he'll turn and look at her. But then you see another person. He's walking up the block. He's walking like almost like he's a robot.
Right.
He's
Focused.
marching forward.
Right.
He knows where he's going.
Yeah.
He probably knows where he's come from. He knows where he is, and nothing can get in his way.
Yeah. There's no peripheral vision. You're just going dead on straight.
Right.
Yeah.
And how many of us, honestly, in our day to day, do we see that will turn and look at that woman? I mean, not to say, our women ain't fine and ain't worth looking at, but how many of us are that unfocused that we are unable to be pulled into a 3-card money game?
Yeah.
But, by this or that issue, not many.
Well, if
not
it's
many.
Gloria Doolin-Wilson,
yeah,
it might
it's
be
Gloria.
an
Yeah,
exception.
we might have to stop the press.
Right. But getting back, and we'll be getting to you, Gloria. Just hold on.
This is fascinating.
I'm glad. Yeah. Well, same here. But the thing is, all of this led to your motivation to get into writing. And I mean, so you went from music, and you started writing novels, short stories, and now you're writing long form.
Yeah, there was a lot more. There was, in songs, I imagine it's the same thing in rap as it is in musical songs or lyrics. What you have to squeeze into a certain amount of time is very little. Yeah, in other words, you have to squeeze a lot into a little time.
Right.
But in a novel, it's like the sky is the limit. And the thing about it is that because I had done some publishing, not writing, but because I had done some publishing before I went away, I knew that I could take something from mind to matter. So I had the end vision already in mind. I already knew. But as people tell me, I found my calling, and to answer your question about the, you're asking me, really what brought me to write a full-length novel.
Right.
That and the idea that there were so many resources around me. I don't know how to make a bomb, but I do now. I don't know the results or the effects that drugs have on a human being, but I do now. I didn't know it before I went to prison, but I do as a result of being in prison.
Because you were...
Because I was same thing as I was talking about, being on that path. People knew that I was writing, and they didn't mind contributing in terms of their knowledge and information. They would tell me, not necessarily stories, but I needed to know how to make a bomb in a certain book, so I asked the appropriate person.
And they were willing, just like that?
Well, again, they saw, accumulatively, people saw that I was, hey, that guy, who's that guy over there? He's writing, and the word gets around. And first they suspect they suspect you're a reporter, or they suspect you're the feds, or you're gathering information, and they're going to snatch you up out of here any minute, and you're going to have new cases. And then, as the more you get into it, they're starting to believe you. Oh, wait, he's pretty serious about that. And then people start to read. Oh yeah, I would let people read some of my writings, and then, that guy is bad. And then the word spreads around, and then resources start to come to you. Financial resources. In
the joint.
In the joint, financial resources. The right friends, I mean, people that would contribute to my well-being, whether it's protection, because I mean, I don't care how big you are, there's always somebody bigger. I don't care how much of a derriere you are, there's always a bigger derriere. I like that one. I edited myself. All of those resources came at me because I was focused, and I implore that on anyone that has a dream or an idea, is to find that focus, and everything will fall into place. Inevitably, you will hit pay dirt somehow, some way.
I happen to agree with that. I mean, the thing is that I haven't hit pay dirt yet. I've been doing this 30 years. I'd like to think that this has been of some help to me. But I'm not an owner yet, and I realize it takes great more for me to do, maybe another 30 years. But the bottom line is, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think that if you are focused on something and you're so driven by it, that things that you want to happen will come to fruition. When I'm listening to you, I'm reminded of the HBO show. I don't even know if it's still on the air. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Oz? You're familiar, Glory, would you know about Oz?
I'll tell you very honestly, I know about it, but never watched
Okay,
it.
all right. Well, I mean, not to say that I was a frequent watcher of it, but the thing is, it talks about prison life, you know, and some of the experiences that you've already recounted seems to mirror what you've gone through.
Actually, I've probably seen one episode of Oz since I've been home. I've been
Right.
home about 6 months, and I watched very little TV when I was locked up. I might have a hankering for some 106 in Park or a good movie.
Gotcha.
But other than that, I stayed away from the TV, and the purpose of that was because I didn't want to be corrupted by what was already out there. I wanted to have a fresh look on my work.
Right.
So the TV never had an influence. In terms of Oz, the one episode that I saw doesn't even scratch the surface.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, again, and the thing is also, because if I'm not mistaken, I understand that you were falsely accused for what it is that you served time for.
Well,
so was there some anger and resentment and motivation behind?
Oh yeah, I remember the first day I was locked up, I wrote a poem that was directed at the judge. It wasn't directed. It was about. The synopsis was that it was me. In other words, I'll still be me, regardless if you lock me up. I still have my mind. My mind will be free. I'll still be me. And this poem that I sent to my lawyer to send to the judge, I mean, I imagine it didn't mean anything in the big scheme of things.
Yeah.
Because when you're in front of a judge, a white judge, who has experience with so-called experience with these people that are coming before him, he really doesn't know you.
Yeah.
And all he sees is the politics that are relative to your case. How many people did you affect with your case? How many people did you hurt? Or how much money was involved? What was your lifestyle like, you know? And he starts to weigh things, and he comes up with his own this raw power decision. And for me, that still it's not an important decision in my life. His conviction of me was not an important decision in my life. The important decision in my life was about me 6 months before the judge locked me up. I remember I was in the car and I called my wife, and I called her out of nowhere, and I said that I love you. And the way that it came out was like, I was trembling, and I was somehow, it was uncommon. It was uncommon for me to do that. Not that it shouldn't be, but as trifling as that sounds, something was telling me that something's about to happen.
Right.
And
you're on a precipice.
It was like I was prophesizing something, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew something was about to happen, and inevitably it did happen. It was happening. It may have had to do with the people that I was meeting, with the people that were now in my circle. I had a staff of 10, and a lot that was weighing on me as the sole proprietor of a magazine, of a TV show. Anybody you name, anybody that's in today's vibe was coming through my office, because at the time BET wasn't in New York. It was about Superstar.
Gotcha.
And so when the record labels had an artist come into town, they sent them in the limo to Superstar. And so, when you meet people, you become more aware. As you said, you've been doing this for a few decades, right?
Yeah.
So the more people you meet, the more information. And I have news for you. You're also breathing in their atoms. And those atoms are being calculated by your computer, meaning your body, your physical being, and you're taking in their spirit. That's when they talk about you getting a vibe about somebody, or
right.
you developing a rapport. You're breathing in their atoms.
And I guess in a way that there are two schools of thought with that, because obviously if they have something negative to project,
Exactly.
I'm
right.
also consuming that.
Exactly.
You
right.
know. And we won't go any further on that because I've consumed a lot since I've been here. We're not going to call any names, and some of them are dead and gone now, but God rest them, just the same. Our special guest is Relentless Aaron, right? And you're an author and who's had a stretch of, I guess, unpleasant time against your own will, and
adversity, we'll call it.
Yeah, adversity would probably be the best thing to say, that, you know, of the 6 years that you were behind bars. But you were able to turn what was a lemon into lemonade, and it's a commendable effort. You have 4 books in front of me here, and I guess basically the one that gets to my attention immediately, because this is something I'd like to do. I have never found myself the time. I can sit down and I can write a newscast. I can write news, broadcast news, and even print news for an hour, several hours if I'm focused. And everything is about focus. You know, I've learned in the broadcast medium, and I'm assuming this goes on in print as well, that the phone will constantly ring. You have to go to the wire just to update a story. You know, you may get information from a phone call that comes in. When I have to write a book, it's a completely different mode, I guess I would have to get into. And to be disciplined and to be focused to do that requires a certain kind of discipline, and a discipline that I'm not necessarily familiar with. You, I mean, for what it's worth, you were confined, but even that would be a distraction for me. You know, maybe it's because I haven't gone through that. Not that I want to, but, you know, I mean, what is it that motivates you to sit down and you know, forgive my vernacular here, but spit out a book in a period of like 2 weeks, you know, when it would take the average person 6 months to a year?
You know, success leaves keys. You've heard that before. And you first, if it's to be an auto mechanic, I'm going to be an apprentice to an auto mechanic so I can learn the trade. And the more I get into it, the better I'm going to be, the more that I'm going to know about the tools that are related. And I'm going to be fixing some cars. Inevitably, I'm going to step up, and I may even own the shop. How many father-son teams do you know have done that?
Right,
you know, where
right.
a son has taken over the father's business, and that's because pretty much he had no choice. And just like Tiger Woods is the best at his craft, or questionably the best at his craft. I'm looking at the press these days.
Yeah.
The Williams sisters, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan. I mean, those fathers pretty much knew what they were doing. They trained them from an early age, and they got better and better and better. And again, success leaves keys. So if you want to be the best, you have to not necessarily follow in the footsteps of the best, but you can take clues from their journey, their challenges, and hopefully learn from the challenges that they had, the hurdles that they had, so that you won't succumb,
Right.
or hopefully you won't run into the hurdles that they had. So yeah, I read the best authors, and I was telling Gloria, the best authors aren't necessarily black. I read, you know, a variety of books, up to 1,000 books there. I won't say up to, that's pretty, I read over 1,000 books.
Okay.
And not just fiction, you know, I've read nonfiction, fiction, I've read a variety of books. And that also lent to my awareness. But bigger than that, the fiction books, and I've read some Goins, the fiction books told me that, hey, I can do this. Because I saw a lot of subpar work, and not in Goins, I mean in various authors.
Right.
And I said to myself, you know what? This, you know, although they are out here and they're doing their thing, I feel that I can lead the crop. I felt that I could be the best at this, and I used Dennis Kimbrough's psychology, which was to read up on what it is I wanted to do, and that was basically fiction writing and publishing. And I feel that, bar none, and you will inevitably see that I am not just the best in my genre as a fiction writer, but also the best inspiration as a publisher as well, in terms of street publishing books that are urban fiction, that type of literature. Because there's different types of literature. There's different venues for it. For me, urban literature is where it counts, because that's where our plight is. That's where our adversity is. And that's where a lot of people are feeling hopeless. And hopefully through my story, they'll be able to see, hey, listen, he went to prison, but hey, go on, what he did with his time, you know, maybe I could take 2 weeks, lock up somewhere in a room, something, and stay focused. I mean, 2 weeks. You understand what I'm saying? But of course, it was a journey that got me to the 2 weeks. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying, if you're focused, there's a lot of writers out there that have been writing for years, and they're never going to see publishing. I met a guy, I was at Gillman with Gloria, Gillman Books in Harlem, and the guy walked up to me, he says, man, your story's incredible. I'm an author. What do I do? And I was about to pull out my book. I did it. You can too, you know. But there was something about this man upon first sight. He was a vagabond. His clothes were scraggly. He was wretched, you know. And he pulled out these books out of his bag, and his books were handwritten. And the books were stapled together. Some were in a disarray. Wow. And it really struck home, because here I am at Gillman, right? One of the authors, I won't mention his name, conflict of interest at the station, but one of the authors were giving a speech to an audience, and here you have another guy that has books written, but he can't get published.
Wow.
So here I am in the middle. You understand? Feeling the pain of him and feeling the success of him.
Yeah.
You know, I feel both of that.
What a dynamic.
And my whole thing is that I feel that I could lift that 10-year-old up out of the street without hope, but with the gift of the lip, and I can direct him to the publishing effort as opposed to the rap effort, where he might be taken for granted by the record company. They'll give him a little $20,000 or a little $100,000, and he'll think it's a big deal to have a rap a contract. But on the other hand, maybe I can give him a publishing deal where he now can feel his work in writing, and he can meet people, and people can meet him, and he can sign autographs, and he can feel what it's like to be productive and to have his words put in print. Maybe he'll want to do more and more. And maybe by the time he's 20, he'll have 50 books.
Gotcha. Right.
When the Egyptians were ruling, they chiseled into stone. They were publishing. You and I are speaking right now. We are publishing. The thoughts that are going through our mind, we're not writing them down, but they're being published. You understand? And the difference between the mind and the matter is just the discipline to be able to write it down. That's the answer to the question. It is the discipline.
It's 107.5 WBLS. Program is Sunday morning. Wayne Gillman with you. Our special guest, Relentless Aaron, along with publicist Gloria Doolan-Wilson. We'll be getting back to her in just a few minutes. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more after this.